It's a great way to start
fixing my hair.
Getting your fluffy floofed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I worked out an hour and a half ago, and I still haven't really done anything but change
put on
shirts.
A new shirt.
Yeah, I changed shirts.
That's
so
good.
yeah. Well, welcome to our second part of, actually, we're several sessions into our Cultivating Culture series. Again, kind of looking at what is it our culture needs to come out of crisis and the last year and a half pandemic and all the cultural shifts that have come with that. What do we need to have to come out of that with this healthy relationship, healthy perspective, and really healthy culture that, could be torn apart by the kind of chaos and polarization as we talked about last week. And our intent has been to really say, what do we need if our government and or spiritual leaders don't provide the tools that we need, then we wanted to at least say the things, and hopefully we can continue to kind of spread that far and wide to help people get better at cultivating culture. And Beth made it. Beth, you made it.
Yay!
So happy to see you.
Hello, and hi Mandy, and hi Susan.
So we're happy to see all of you, but Beth has had a few difficulties in getting through to us.
Yeah.
And so she's had to fight a couple of different barriers to get back online with us. So
good morning.
Good morning, Beth. Good day.
Yes.
So good day. That's a terrible Australian accent. Yeah, you can say.
I thought it was lovely.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Hi,
Belinda.
Hey, Belinda. So anyway, we want to continue on tonight with what I think is one of the most important topics, not only for our culture today, but for healthy relationships as a whole. We actually teach some stuff about this in our communication pathway. I think it's called Strengthening Relationships Pathway. 3 of those classes are free on the silver subscription level of Think Differently Academy. And one of those 3 is our one on conflict resolution.
Yeah.
I'm going to handle it a little bit differently tonight, though the principles are still the same. I really want to talk about one of these things that happens when we disagree with people online. What?
People disagree with people online?
Well, I've heard that can happen. But it's one of those things where obviously handling conflict in every setting is important, and learning the skills of handling conflict is important. But when we talk about it at a cultural level, one of the things that I see, obviously, I think you do too, is we've simply gotten to where rather than working towards resolution or working towards relationship, it seems like we're just more comfortable. And David's on.
Hi, David.
It seems like we're just more comfortable just kind of taking shots at one another.
Yeah.
And, I'm aware that there are significant issues that our culture disagrees on. I'm aware that there are things just like we talked about last time that the culture's in many ways split down the middle. But I put out a tweet yesterday. It's one of, I think I've said to you already, on social media, I'm very careful to not put my stances out there. And there's a reason for that. I'm not afraid to talk about my stances. I just, don't think social media is a good arena to resolve them, or to convince people or change people's minds, or even to express mine without being misunderstood. Secondly, because honestly, most of my stuff is not what people would expect. Most of my beliefs and stances are not what people would expect. Hello, everyone, to our new visitor.
Hello.
And so number one, I don't do it because I don't think it's a good venue for resolving conflict or even, broadcasting one side of a polarized issue. Number two, I don't put them out on social media because I would rather talk about process than talk about my side of a polarized opinion.
Yeah.
If you'll notice, most of what I put out there is kind of above and thinking, looking at the interaction from above, kind of like the way that I think as a therapist. When I'm working with a couple, I can't take sides with one or the other. I have to help them work through a healthy process, move from an unhealthy process to a healthy process.
Yeah.
So when I'm on social media, I typically try to address process instead of trying to express my opinions about particular things. Because as I tell people, when you have a healthy process, you can resolve anything. So I see that Jim's on. Let me see what Susan's saying to us. Yeah, absolutely, Susan. So she's saying the medium itself is part of the problem. So
Yeah.
when we're online, my name is Hader, if you couldn't read it. And you're right, Hader, we can't. Thank you for knowing that. But we're super happy to have you with us. And if you want to, let us know where you are. There's a number of people from different states and a number of people from different countries around the world. So let us know where you are.
Yeah.
And then, so let me continue the thought process. Basically, last week we talked about responding to polarization when issues become so divided and so opposite in the way they're handled. Fantastic. Live from Iraq.
Very cool.
Wonderful to have you.
Glad you're here.
So when people are polarized like that, again, that's one of the main reasons why I stay neutral on social media, because polarization is simply the process of increasing division, moving in opposite directions. I always have a hard time doing that. In opposite directions, because of the people only take up sides. No one talks about how to move towards resolution.
Mm-hmm.
And so last week we talked about resolution and what it means to address process. Tonight we want to get a little more general and talk about not just polarization, but conflict in particular. And I want to give the principles of it and then talk about some applications. And that's what we have for you tonight.
Yeah. I think we talked a little bit about doing some
oh
my goodness. I
Role
can't think of role play. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Polly's seen more clients than I did today.
Yes.
So
I've had a few clients today. Yes. So my words are limited.
So she's run through all of her words and all of her thoughts.
Yeah.
Brandon from St. Louis. Good to have you, sir.
And Betty, hey there. Yeah.
And so let's do this. All we talked about last week in terms of polarization, Loudoun County, Virginia. Awesome. We knew that, but thanks for telling everybody else, Betty. I guess I don't know if I knew the county, but we knew Virginia.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about polarization, that the specific to that is the idea that we have to have someone somewhere who represents the process without taking a side.
Mm-hmm.
In conflict, the idea is, for tonight's purposes, the idea is that we want to talk about when you disagree with somebody else, how to handle that in ways that can move towards, if not resolution, can at least move towards relationship in disagreement.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've shared this story before, that a good friend of ours that we met in person, but we met online long before we met in person. He had posted one of my Facebook posts with the statement, "I disagree with this, but I'm interested in the thoughts."
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was fascinated by the fact that somebody would post something they disagree with. So I private messaged him. And over the years, he and I have become pretty good friends. And then when, Polly entered the scene, they became good friends. And 2 years ago, when we were on vacation, we were not far from where he lived. And so we had breakfast together and had a blast. We probably are opposites in 80% of our fundamental beliefs in life.
Yeah. Except for the human heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really, really stands for people being protected. He stands for people being seen and valued. He just stands in different ways than we would.
Yeah.
And he's a professing atheist, as well as an advocate for some things that I might advocate for very differently than he does. But we had a great breakfast together. And at the end of that breakfast, I always remember, you do too.
Yeah.
He said, "I need to meet more Christians like you two." Because one of his things is, he's encountered a lot of people who profess to be Christians but are mean.
Mm-hmm.
And we just had a blast sitting in a beautiful spot over the harbor, eating a delicious breakfast that I can't have now because cholesterol. But in the meantime, we've become pretty good, friends over time.
Mm-hmm.
And we still don't agree in those key areas. And I don't know where he stands on some of the modern stuff, but I know that he and I value each other. Tell him I am right and you are wrong. Don't even say a word. Just follow me. That's how you resolve conflict.
God.
Nice.
Yeah.
Close. Let us show you another way, perhaps. So what we want to do, I'm going to talk through just some general principles.
Mm-hmm.
And then do you have in mind how we'll
figure it out.
Okay.
Talk about some principles. I'll think of that.
I'll talk about principles. Yeah. Principle number one is it's important to understand that a great deal of handling conflict is mindset. And the initial mindset needs to be that you understand and recognize that you value the person regardless of what you think of their opinion. I think that's one of the things that's gotten lost in the social media world. I watched somebody just today who posted an opinion, and immediately their character was attacked. Instead of people putting opposing opinions, they immediately piled on and started to oppose character or attack character. The mindset has to be that somewhere down the line, we all share something in common. And so if we don't share the opinion in common, we want to work towards what we do share in common and perhaps try to understand what their perspective is. So I want to talk through that. The first part is mindset, that says the other person is just as valuable as I am. And the fact that they think something different than I do, I should say think differently, right?
Yeah.
The fact they think differently than I do does not mean that they are a different kind of person than me. So first and foremost, it's got to be the willingness to value the person. Secondly, it's got to be the willingness to engage, assuming you don't know what people often assume they know. So the tweet that I mentioned yesterday, never named, sorry, I got lost. The tweet that I posted yesterday said, do you really believe that they believe what you believe they believe? My observation is that on social media, the people who get the most attention are the far end of the bell curve, and the middle of the bell curve, where the majority of humans live, don't have the extremes that are held by the hearts and minds of people at the end of the bell curve.
Yeah.
And yet people in the middle of the bell curve are judged by the visible people on the ends of the bell curve. So people believe all of this group believes a certain thing, and therefore they all are a certain way. And all of that group believes another certain thing, and so they all are the same way. And therein lies this prejudgment that takes place that we would call prejudice, this prejudgment that says, I already know what's true about you because of the statement you made. You only know the statement they made. You don't know the context of it. You don't know their history. You don't know anything except the statement they made. And you won't really be able to work towards resolution or even towards connection if you assume the negative about their character before you move into the conflict. So number one, assume the best about them. Number two, assume that you don't know as much about them as you want to think you do. Assume that they don't believe what you believe they believe. And number three is enter in with questions genuinely intended to get information, not intended to, excoriate the other person. That's my new word this week. I've used it 3 times. Excoriate. That means like rip them up. At least I think that's what it means. If I'm wrong, someone's going to tell me. Not intended to, pin them down, not intended to show the flaw or error of their thinking, but rather questions that are genuinely designed to learn about them and their perspective and the reasons they hold that perspective. So number one, assume the best about them. Number two, assume that your expectations or judgments are likely to be wrong. And number three, enter in with questions instead of assumptions. Number three, if your questions are, number four, if your questions are designed to really help understand, then what's going to happen is they're going to start telling you stuff that you disagree with. They're going to start, whatever your stance is on anything from vaccines to political positions to certain political candidates, whatever your stance is on those things, they're going to tell you the stuff that they believe. And it's likely to be stuff you disagree with. Now is the moment. What are you going to do in that moment? So what I'm recommending is that you listen with the assumption that there are reasons why they believe that. And some of the reasons might be that they've only gotten their information from YouTube,
TikTok.
And some of it
Twitter.
might be that they've deeply researched it through a number of different methods, but you're not going to know if you immediately dismiss them. Listen, you don't have to say anything for them to know that you're dismissing them. Yeah, I love that, Hater. We say we treat others like you wanted to be treated, so listen to them like you want them to listen to you. That is prime rule right there to say, if you want to enter their world the way that you would want them to enter yours. I love that. So listen to understand their side rather than planning your argument. Nice.
Yes.
Judging the other person's opinion based on what you experience from other people has been believed what they believed.
Mm.
Exactly.
Yes.
So what we're really talking about is genuinely entering their world, not with the intent to change them or prove them wrong. Think about if Jesus had entered the human race solely with the purpose of making us different.
Mm-hmm.
It was his willingness to connect to us in our need that gave him the opportunity to meet our need.
Mm-hmm.
And his connection to us in our need didn't start out with a poor, broken humanity. I am here to fix you. It started out with, I am here to be with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so as you enter the conversation with questions, and as Vivian says, to understand their side, then what we're after is two things. Number one, we're after understanding their side, really genuinely. And the other thing is, I'm always looking for, do we have anything in common? It's one of the reasons why I'm friends with the person that I mentioned, because clearly there are things that we have in common that really at the core, like I said, he deeply values speaking up for the oppressed. He deeply values protecting people's hearts. He deeply values checking in on people. He's way better at that than I am.
Oh, he's so good at it.
He's really good at checking in on people to make sure they're doing okay. So he really values people. But again, there's 80% of the specifics that we're like pretty opposite on.
Yeah.
But I was looking, and ironically, he was also looking for what do we have in common. Real quick, the conversation that took place, and all this was, by the way, on the private side of social media,
Mm-hmm.
because when I asked him about this, I didn't want the quote unquote audience aspect of social media to influence our conversation. I was genuinely interested why he would post something he disagrees with, and B, why he disagreed.
Yeah.
Essentially what I had posted was something along the lines of, if we truly love people, we will not allow them to walk in the lies that they believe about themselves. If people believe lies about themselves, it's not loving and kind to allow them to continue to live based on the lies they believe.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I would say to our audience, that doesn't mean you walk up to strangers on the street and, help them confront the lies that they believe.
You're living a lie.
Right. It means in the context of relationship, you have the opportunity to work with people and communicate with people to help them go, I know you see this about yourself, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that that's accurate.
Yeah.
As opposed to, that's not true. Right. So I had messaged him on social media and I said, hey, I'm super intrigued that you would post this, and I'd love to know what you disagree with about it. And he came back and said, well, it seemed well thought out, and I'm always a fan of good thinkers. Bingo, we've got something in common.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm also a fan of good thinkers, right? And then he went on to say, but what I disagree with is, it's not your place to decide whether or not they're living a lie or believing a lie.
Mm-hmm.
And I said back to him, I said, in my profession, I said, I often have people asking for help with things. And it turns out the reason they need help is because they believe something about their identity or about their nature or about their character that's not accurate. And
Mm-hmm.
my profession is to help them discern what's accurate and what's inaccurate. And he came back and said, what do you do? I said, I'm a therapist. And his answer back, I'm a therapist too. Bingo. Two things in common now, right? Obviously, there's a million schools of therapy thought, but, so his school of thought, again, even in the therapy realm is different, but he's a helper of people.
Mm-hmm.
So now we've got things in common, and we begin from those common grounds to have conversation about, how I do that. What are my values in doing that? And he talked about what are his values in not imposing things on people. Obviously, I'm not trying to impose my beliefs on other people, but I'm trying to peel back beliefs that they carry that are likely to be untrue about their true identity. And so what he's saying is, I don't feel like it's our place to identify if they're believing a lie or not believing a lie. We're just supposed to connect with them where they are.
Yeah.
So, Hader, this is your first time listening to a therapist tonight?
Nice.
Well, good to have you.
Yeah.
You get therapist, trauma coach, and then the therapist who's not here that I'm telling the story about. So you get both of us. I didn't get what you said before. It's one of the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, not entering Islam in the subject. I just mean that saying is not mine. Gotcha. Okay. Got it. And it's okay to enter that as a subject. I like that you're clarifying that.
Yeah, thank you.
So difficult to do in conflict, says Beth, but I wish more people were like this, including myself, instead of responding to conflict with attacking character. Here's the thing is, two things about conflict. Number one, most people have not seen good examples of conflict. Most of the time, conflict is portrayed as a win-lose confrontation where one person is trying to prove that they're right with the assumption that would mean that the other person's wrong. Number two, they've often seen conflict done with high emotion where anger is the key driving force to try to overpower the other person.
Yeah.
And so, so because of that, a lot of people have experienced conflict that way in their years growing up. And so when they engage conflict, it triggers them into the bottom part of their brain, right? It's easier for me to do sitting in my office because sometimes I have to confront people and have conflict with my clients. The reason I do that is because they might be stuck in some ways, and it's my job to help push on the places they're stuck. And when they push back, it's crucial for me to stay out of my brainstem and really work the process that I've just described to you. Listen, I was terrible at conflict until I spent 30 years in my profession. I didn't like it. I avoided it. I didn't want to have conflict. I still don't want to have conflict, but these days, I think you would say, I don't avoid it.
Yeah, don't avoid it.
Because I've seen in my practice the fruit of avoiding conflict.
Yeah.
When conflict is avoided, people divide in relationally, and they don't know it because they're not talking about it. And what happens is the space between them continues to grow because there's issues that aren't being resolved. So when conflict is approached as a way to resolve issues and create connection, then the steps that I just talked about have to fall underneath that.
Yeah.
I'm going to share a couple ways that I've done this online, and then maybe we'll demonstrate. Have you thought of some ways to do that?
I think I have, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good, because I'm not thinking about them when I'm talking. So, so online, occasionally I share my opinion. Like I said, in areas of polarity and some political things, I don't, for the reasons I talked about both last week and tonight. But when I see people being harmed by theological stances, especially around abuse and divorce and the issues surrounding harming people that are trapped in oppressive situations, I will sometimes speak up because I feel like I have a specific voice and perspective that can help the person who's either being oppressed or feels the guilt or shame of a particular theological stance about things like divorce and or abuse and oppression and other aspects of theology that are used to make people feel guilt and shame. I'll speak into those from time to time. And sometimes when I put my thoughts out there, people will come onto my thread to disagree. Sadly, most of them don't disagree in the way that I lined out. But when people come onto my thread to disagree, I'm going to respond to them in the way that I've just described. So I had one where I recently posted, I guess 2 years ago. When did we go to Galveston?
Oh, gosh.
With the dogs that time?
Galveston? Yeah.
It was on that trip that...
2 or 3 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, it was on that trip where I had posted some stuff about the teaching I do about the problem Jesus came to solve, about the true trees, and understanding kind of a reframe of the whole issue that people call the fall of man. And in posting that, there were like 59 comments going, oh, this is so helpful. And some guy got on and commented, someone had posted his name, kind of like, hey, dude, what do you think of this? And then he got on and started to really like discredit all of my statements, quoting verses. And I thought, oh, somebody wants to talk. And so I got on it and I addressed him by name. I don't remember his name, obviously, but I addressed him by name. I said, hey, Steve, let's pretend it's Steve. I said, hey, Steve, I don't think we know each other. My name's Bob. I'm a counselor in Texas, and I also have worked at churches a number of different times. I see that you disagree with me. Let me know your thoughts about, and then I posted a few other things that were, in some cases, if he posted a verse, I'd post the verse before and after to put them in context. In some cases, I posted verses that seemed to contradict, the very verses he was putting out there. And so, which is often what happens when you pick a single verse to represent an idea,
Right.
is that, you can pick a verse to represent almost anything. And so I said, hey, let me know your thoughts about this. And he came back one or two times, but he had a real kind of condescending tone, like, you're leading people down a path of destruction. Clearly you don't know what you're talking about. His approach to me was still pretty critical and assumptive.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, gosh, I hear that you're concerned about what I'm teaching here, and I can see that we disagree. I want to make you aware that there are a number of people, both in churches and out of churches, that both have agreed with and that I have helped with fairly serious issues using some of the teaching and some extensions of this teaching. Mm-hmm. So it's really helped people instead of hurt them. And I think we went back and forth one more time, and then he kind of went away.
Yeah.
But I want you to catch a couple things about that. He came on and he didn't quite attack character, but he really was saying essentially, you're dumb and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so I
character.
guess that's character.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
But my response back to him was not in the same tone, the same mode, or the same intent. His intent was just to say, you're wrong, therefore you're bad. Everybody should ignore this. And I came back, right. And I came back to say, can we have a conversation about this?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think if I asked questions, because I just taught you guys used to ask questions. I don't remember if I did in that particular instance.
I don't remember. But you're so good at that. So I'm kind of assuming you did in that context, but I'm not. That was a few years ago. So
there was another one where somebody came on and they had very overtly said something to the effect of, divorce is always wrong, even if you're being abused, which is kind of a hot button thing for me. And my assumption is on Twitter that there are people who will hear that and feel shame and or believe that and stay in a potentially dangerous situation. Mm-hmm. And so I engaged that.
You did ask questions. She remembers the post.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Good memory, buddy.
Wow. Nice, Susan.
Both of you remember. Wow. Yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. I told you about those questions. So the other one, this person had come on and basically I came to their post because what they were saying, I felt caused incredible shame and potentially kept people not just feeling guilt and shame, but kept them in harmful situations.
Yeah.
And keeping them in harmful situations, I felt like I could give input that might release them to go ahead and get out of dangerous situations.
Yeah.
Was I offended by the fellow's comments? I don't think I was offended. I genuinely wanted, I want people to question me. Mm-hmm. I don't want to assume that I have my theology 100% right. I don't have my psychology 100% right.
Right.
I'm actually not a psychologist. I'm a marriage and family therapist. And so I think questions help people grow and
connect.
And connect. And so I wanted him to ask me questions. What I didn't want was to be told I was stupid.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't offended by his disagreement. I wanted to change the tone of the conversation. So, Hader, thanks. You learned from me. That's
and
what
did you
we're
see
here
why?
for.
It's pretty awesome.
When I have a conflict with someone, my response depends on their saying. If they're not respectful, I aggressively attack them without mercy. But if they're respectful, I just say thank you. So one of the things, this is a crucial piece of this. We mentioned earlier that when people get into conflict, I love that here. That's super helpful realization, and I'm glad to hear that you're learning. Let me take us all a little bit further with that and say, I'd mentioned earlier that often when we're in conflict, we get into our brainstem. Brainstem is where we feel scared or we feel angry and we feel like we've got to fight, run, or just kind of shut down, fight, flight, or freeze, right? And so when we're in our brainstem, the other person actually has power over us. So if someone comes to us in their brainstem, angry, critical, all that kind of stuff, and we get triggered down into the bottom half of our brain, we've actually just relinquished our personal power and our spiritual authority to them. We've given them the keys to take control of our brain. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons I respond the way I do is I want to say, I'm not going to go into my brainstem because of you. I'm going to stay up here in the part of my brain that's connection and analysis, right? Mm-hmm. And I want to stay there because there's a hope that good can come of this. So when someone comes at me in their brainstem, my goal is to say, if I can just stay out of my, and by the way, if you're familiar with the feeling of being in your brainstem, it can feel real tight and hot and all the feelings that go with anger and fear.
And that doesn't mean that won't happen.
Right.
Like when you first read a post or however you're communicating, it's like, oh, that feels itchy and gross and ew. And I mean, those are normal responses. It's then what do you do with that immediate response?
And sometimes, honestly, like I'll get a comment or some piece of feedback and I'll have to like wait an hour or more.
Or 24 hours.
Or 24 hours. Because I don't want to present to you that I don't get triggered and stuff.
Yeah.
What I'm telling you is I don't want to respond out of a triggered state.
Right.
Because again, that gives them power over me. And so if there's something someone's either commented on my stuff or something, that they've written that I think really merits a response that helps other people, I'll kind of breathe through it, think through for the next 24 hours my response, and then sit down when I'm in the upper part of my brain again to where I can really respond to them with an analytical and connecting response instead of brainstem for brainstem, anger for anger, eye for an eye, tooth for tooth kind of thing. And so, Hader, I love that you took that and did something with that tonight. Yeah. So, part of the feeling brain. So the limbic system is the part where we experience connection.
Yeah.
We actually taught some about that, specifically about those levels of the brain. I don't remember when the last time we did it.
If you're watching on our YouTube channel and or Facebook page, YouTube, go ahead and hit subscribe. But you can go and look at all of our videos and you will see some videos where we talk about the 4 levels of the brain. And, there's different teachings. You're a medical student. Awesome.
Sweet.
And so in the teachings that we're talking about with just the 4 levels, we'd love for you to look at that and see, because I know there's different thought processes and teachings, different thought processes, but different, what would you call it?
Frameworks
for the brain. Yes.
So the limbic system is responsible for emotions when it comes to connection, relationship, different set of emotions. The brainstem is really that kind of animal. Some people call it the lizard brain. And by the way, I'm a little intimidated that you're a med student, but super thankful that you're speaking up. The way that we've taught it is that the brainstem is really, really kind of just above the
top of the spine.
Is the top of the spine.
Yeah.
And as a result, it's the most primitive part of the brain that responds with when you're in a state of threat. And so it puts you in that kind of triggered state of fight, flight, or freeze in response. So that it's not so much emotions as it is kind of locking it down into fight, flight, freeze mode.
And medically, we did not come up with this teaching. This is all like what we have learned just through neuroscience and brain stuff, and relationship stuff.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So in dealing with conflict, one of the things I've tried to do is make sure that I don't get triggered into the part of my brain where I lose control, and I move to the part of my brain where I can move into connection and into a more thoughtful analysis as opposed to a reactive type stance.
Yeah.
So, you've thought of ways we can demonstrate?
I think so. So it's very...
I'm going to turn a little bit because I'm too much this way.
You might push this back just a tad. So literally taking the high road in the brain. I like that, Beth. You're right. So
nice.
Taking the high road. So I was trying to think of...
What do you think of it? Occasionally we've taught this in public places where we will actually have a conflict that we handle in front of a crowd.
Yes. This is not like that.
This is not that?
No.
Okay. So far, we've done pretty well at that. We've solved some issues.
Yeah, I think we're 3 for 0.
With an audience of, anywhere from 50 to 200.
Yeah.
And anyway, so tell me what we're doing.
So I was just trying to take a debate of like, you have one stance, I have another stance.
Okay.
And literally it's cats and dogs, which you can have dogs because I'm a dog person too.
Okay.
But I know it may not be a good enough
literally cats and dogs
division of But, I can just I like kitty cats. So I could stand on the ground that I'm only a cat person and that you are a dog person. Yeah. I know it's not a true conflict, but it's something we could demonstrate. Of course, the only issue is, I guess, I would have to be faking it.
Yeah. Which is why we usually handle real conflicts in front of people. We actually did it on video one time.
Yeah.
So,
just trying to think of a conflict.
If you want to stick with the animal thing, we could talk about squirrels.
Oh, yes. He hates squirrels. I try to save them.
Well, you have an assumption that I hate squirrels.
Well, I think you have actually said the words, I hate squirrels, to me.
I consider squirrels differently than I think most people do.
So when we have the conversations in the car about squirrels, tell me how you hear yourself having that conversation.
Well, I hear myself saying that I put squirrels in a different category. I put squirrels in the category of the kind of creatures that people easily exterminate, like rats and insects. And I think most people think of squirrels as cute and fuzzy because they're fuzzy and they're cute. But I've experienced them to be just like other destructive vermin. Mm-hmm. And as such destructive vermin, it's much easier for me to think about exterminating squirrels. I hope this is okay on YouTube. We're probably going to get banned. We don't get banned for talking about stuff. We're not talking about COVID vaccines or anything like that. We're going to get banned for talking about exterminating
PETA's going to come after
squirrels.
us. Yeah.
So I've been in a situation a number of different times over a period of time where squirrels have cost a lot of money and destroyed valuable property, as well as woken people up several times throughout the night by running around an attic that they chewed their way into and destroyed things inside the attic, just like you would think with a rat or
raccoon.
A raccoon or something that you would consider a varmint or a vermin to be, gosh, you've got to get rid of them. How do you get rid of them?
So it sounds like you had a pretty kind of feel very frustrated towards a squirrel, or just know that their power is to harm and not just to be cute and fuzzy.
Yeah, I was frustrated at the time.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm frustrated with them now. It just shifted my belief about them.
Yeah.
So I don't hate them. I just don't see them as the cute, fuzzy things that I think most people see them as.
So when we're I'm trying to decide how far I go. So your belief in exterminating them,
I would set a trap for them. I would set up
even
poison
the ones,
for them.
But even the ones that aren't in a home, attacking them, just out doing squirrel life.
Just a squirrel
doing a squirrel thing. So when I hear you express such dislike towards them, I get a little squirrel defensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why I thought this would be a good one to talk about. Yeah, I think we have a different picture of squirrels.
Yeah. I have experienced,
So you've experienced me in a way.
Yeah.
That's different than what you're hearing me say.
Well, I experience you still very much in all squirrels are bad, and
I have to see comments because we're talking to Google what I'll do.
I'm so glad I catch you laugh. I miss you too. Epic conflict. Yeah, so I experience you seeing all squirrels are bad, and so
yes,
when we're driving things like that, you're like, didn't I do good? In the squirrel to
not run the squirrel
over.
I appreciate that you're trying not to say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I don't run the squirrel over, which I never have done since we've been married, right?
Yeah. Okay. But I don't know, have you? Because I haven't been in the car all the time.
Well, you've never seen me do that.
Right, correct.
And I have never done that since we've been married.
Okay.
But it is kind of they are vermin.
Yeah.
I've never actually run a squirrel over before. Mm-hmm. But I do kind of play around with the idea of accelerating when they dash across the road. Mm-hmm. But I've never killed one.
Yeah.
And I don't really think I would kill one on the road.
Yeah.
On purpose.
Yeah.
I would set a trap for them.
Yeah.
I did at one point put poison out for them, and I think that's how I finally got rid of them.
Yeah.
But it was because they were being so destructive. And again, for me, it wasn't like anger or hatred. It was irritating when it was 3 a.m. and they were running around screaming in the attic.
Yeah.
And, but it was more a matter of, wow, they're not the cute little fuzzy, they're not the monkeys in the cage that I thought they were. They're more like rats.
Yeah.
And I know some people have pet rats.
Yes.
So
it's interesting because I'm not convinced.
I know she's not very convincing, is she? Betty, I'm glad you're on my side. So I'm glad you see it my way.
Yes, Betty, I got you, girl. So I can hear that, if I were to be in your shoes, and because we've had raccoons before, and they have done some damage, and they're very loud and all that.
Talking about our raccoons.
Our
here?
Raccoons at our house here.
Yeah.
Yet I don't know if I fully understand. Now, they did not destroy our house, and they were noisy, and I still don't know if I fully understand. Like, I don't have a deep dislike towards squirrels or raccoons. I think they're cute and fuzzy. I don't want them in my attic.
Yeah.
I wouldn't I don't get triggered when I see one. And I don't know if you get triggered, but I know
I don't think I get triggered.
Yeah.
Now, you've seen me, so.
Yeah.
But you may, anyway. So I spent about 6 months patching holes in, what's the roof that's wood? Is it called shake?
A shake a shake roof. Yeah.
I had to patch about 6 or 7 holes that they ripped into a shake roof.
Mm-hmm.
And when they got in the attic, they also started ripping into the ceiling.
Mm.
And then, like I said, they would run around at night and up in the roof and would make terrible noises. Like it sounded like a haunted house.
Yeah.
So I had about 6 months of dealing with, and quite a bit of money dealing with an infestation of squirrels that I very much did not think of them as cute, fuzzy things by the end of it.
Yeah, I can see that. That's a very long time to have to deal with that and cost a lot of money. So how do you feel about me? The fact that I like squirrels and I think they're adorable and cute and fluffy.
So let me first of all say, I'm sorry if you have thought that I would really run one over with you in the car.
Thank you.
I can see that would be disturbing to think that I might just exterminate one in your presence.
Yes, because it's very not in alignment with who I believe you to be.
Yeah. Well, and it wouldn't have been before I had to, exterminate them before.
Yeah.
I literally put them in a different category after that.
Yeah.
But I also have you in a category where I'm not going to run over an animal of any kind unless it's about to kill you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm not going to run over an animal of any kind with you in the car. And I'm not going to run over a squirrel on purpose, but, I would never do that with you in the car. I'm fine with you liking squirrels, as long as you're not interested in tempting them to come into our yard more than they already do.
No, I will not do that because I know they are destructive, just like raccoons.
I know that they sometimes come in and get your bird food and things like that. But that's different than destroying a roof.
It is very different.
But I'm fine with you liking them. That doesn't bother me at all. Just I don't really want them to be baited into our presence more.
Yes, that makes sense.
Is that good?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Love you.
Love you too. All right. Epic, as Hader told us. So they tore a roof off a person's house.
Speeding up car might signal a trigger, right? Let's see here. Where
go all the way back.
Oh gosh. Okay. So
3 for O.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I agree with Bob. I think there's a couple country songs about this topic. PETA is coming after you. Yeah, that's exactly what I was. Yeah, they're extremely destructive. Christianity, because when we talk. Oh, I'm so sorry you've had that experience.
Yeah.
Hater.
So I don't know that I want to have a conflict with you tonight necessarily, though I'd love to have a conversation with you. If you want to go over to the Think Differently Academy Facebook page, and I'd be happy to get on, a conversation with you privately. But I will tell you this: I'm not going to be angry about. I don't know as much about Islam as probably a lot of my friends do, and so I'd be curious to learn some of what you have to say. But I certainly don't have anything to be angry about. And so I'd love to have a conversation sometime, probably not on tonight's video because we're close to wrapping up.
Yes.
So, but thanks for the offer. I appreciate that. It's an honor that you would ask.
Yeah. I'm glad to finally catch a live. Miss you as we go, Heather, as we go into talking about squirrels. You're probably going, what are we talking about tonight?
This was the best live to catch.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I had to Google it. We don't have them. Oh, you don't have them in Australia. Yes. So
it's
I don't
funny.
know.
I was in Hawaii once, and they have mongoose.
Yes.
That at a distance kind of looked like squirrels, but they move funny.
Yeah, they're very cute.
So do you guys have mongoose?
And they look like
I can't
ferrets.
Quit thinking about it now. You should have bought a squirrel.
Rat race movie. Let's see here. I'm not convinced. I wish, because I can't get. Oh yeah. So sorry.
Not as bad as raccoons.
Yeah.
Our raccoons did not get destructive. They
were so cute. Oh gosh.
They were such a mystery that we couldn't figure out how they were getting in.
They tore off a roof of a person's house. Yeah. Let's see here. Nope. No squirrels, chipmunks, or raccoons. Oh wow. So you don't have Facebook.
Okay. We'll figure out a way.
Not weird. I'm barely on Facebook. So.
If you want to have a conversation about that, I'm happy to, and we can figure out a way to do that. So let me know if you're interested, and we'll just come up with a way to do that.
Yeah. You can just, type that out on YouTube, because we're about to wrap up tonight's class. And I'm glad you enjoyed our discussion about squirrels. So obviously we're after what we did in role playing is, we can get caught up in the conversation about squirrels and our side of squirrels and what we believe about squirrels, and squirrels live forever, all that kind of stuff.
What's the right thing to believe about squirrels?
Right. Or death to squirrels, however you want to see it. But it's really about how we communicate with each other, and the kindness and the empathy and the questions, and being able to help navigate to stay connected with each other. I'm pointing at like the limbic system part of our brain, of where we're communicating out of connection, not out of defense, out of my side is right, your side is wrong.
Yeah, asking questions.
Yeah, asking questions.
Trying to understand.
Yeah. Mutuality is huge.
If we could begin to do that on social media, if we could all begin to kind of change the tone of that stuff on social media, I think it could change a lot of things. I don't know how many people view these overall, but we're again trying to talk about what we think the culture, what the world needs right now in a time of crisis, when there's a lot of division and fear and anger. And one of the key things we talked last week about polarization, and this week we wanted to get down to the kind of the specifics of how you handle a conflict, whether in person regarding varmints, or whether on social media regarding a topic that you feel dearly about.
Yeah.
Listen, one of the things that happens is the way that people get into fights is they assume things that other people believe, and then it goes straight into character. And you must believe this because you're this kind of person. You won't know until you ask.
That's right.
And so take the time to ask. And especially if someone responds defensively the first time, know that they're expecting the brainstem response. They're expecting that kind of, let's duke it out. Go at it a couple times from the place of connection before you either give up on the conversation or default into your own brainstem type response. So.
And I know we're about to wrap up. Can I just kind of finalize that? If you are having a conversation with a person that is absolute, and they're cruel, and they will not they're pushing back on every question, and you try to empathize, and just, you're trying all the different angles, and they just keep trying to chip at your brainstem. Sometimes it's like, I'm not sure if this conversation is going to help us find connection. Yeah. So I'm no longer going to have this conversation with you.
So there's a point when Jesus taught, don't throw your pearls before swine. And I always tell people the point of that is not to call people swine, but rather to recognize that pigs don't have an appreciation for fine jewelry.
Yeah.
And so don't offer fine jewelry to someone that doesn't have an appreciation for it. If you've got thoughts and opinions and things that really matter to you, and you've offered it a few times, and it's clear that they don't have an appreciation for it, don't continue to offer something to people or a person that they've clearly expressed a lack of value for. There's no reason to try to keep convincing them. You're just falling into their trap at that point. So if you've got pearls, give them to people who value the pearls.
Yeah.
So
you guys have a great night. Thank you for the new people. And again, if y'all are on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. And if you're on Facebook, hit the like, and you guys share these videos as much as you like. We would love that. And we hope to see you guys next Tuesday.
All right. See you soon.
Good night. Bye-bye.